Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2019 Advanced. In this and the next few sections, we're going to look at the use of statistical functions, and statistical functions are amongst the most numerous in Excel 2019, and many of them are used in relation to pretty complex statistics. And because this isn't a specialized course in statistics, I'm really going to look mainly at the most commonly used and in some sense most basic statistical functions. But if you do have an advanced knowledge of statistics and you need to use statistical functions, you'll find the ones provided in Excel 2019 are a pretty powerful set. Now I'm looking at the Excel 2019 help page here, and as I scroll down the list of statistical functions, you'll see just how many of them there are. And as usual, the ones that have been introduced in the most recent versions of Excel are marked, and there is a batch there for forecasting, which were introduced in Excel 2016. Now, in my coverage of statistical functions, I'm really going to divide the functions and their use into three main groups. First of all, we're going to look at descriptive functions. These are functions you can use to describe a set of results, normally one or more samples of results, and where you are looking at statistics that typify those results or enable you to compare one sample with another sample. The second set of functions are the ones that are used for prediction or forecasting, and that includes these newer functions that you can see here. And the third set are the set that are used for statistical inference, and these are functions that, where based on a sample, you want to infer something. For example, the population where the sample comes from. These are often functions that are used in scientific research, opinion polls, and so on. Now, one important point to bear in mind is that there is a very long list of functions, and a couple of the functions here, quartile.exc and quartile.inc, we saw the use of quartile.inc earlier in the course, and don't forget there is also a quartile function. And in fact, there are quite a few statistical functions that are still available in Excel 2019 that have been superseded by the ones listed here. These are kept in Excel 2019 to make sure that older workbooks work for people, but wherever possible, you should try to use the ones that are used in the current Excel 2019 help on functions. Try avoid using the older ones. So let's get started on the descriptive statistics, and I'm going to use some data relating to a branch of an insurance company, and the data covers a period from January 2012 through to the end of December 2015, and there are two columns of numbers. The first column, column B, represents the number of inquiries made at that branch over time, and the second column shows the number of policies issued each month. Now, the data you see here is very typical of a situation where you have a whole mass of numbers, and simply looking at that list of numbers, it's hard to deduce anything from that list of numbers. You can see that there are generally a lot more inquiries than policies. You can see that the number of inquiries is usually in the range of 400, 500, 600. And the number of policies issued is usually around 100, 150, a little bit higher sometimes. Now, when we are doing statistical analysis, one of the first things we normally do is calculate a few standard statistics that enable us to get a good basic picture. So let's look at the typical kind of statistics we might calculate. I'm going to be using the numbers in columns B and C quite a bit, so I'm going to define named ranges for inquiries and policies. Having set up those named ranges, let's calculate a few straightforward statistics. We might, for instance, look at the minimum number of inquiries. Now, when we use the min function, note the list of arguments. Now, I've set up a named range, so I know it begins with the word branch. So if I just start typing, what happens is that IntelliSense will eventually show me my options. So it's branch, and there you go. I can select branch inquiries. Close my brackets and press enter. And the lowest value in column B is 418. And of course, it's a very straightforward job to find the minimum number of policies and the maximum as well, and I'll do that next. Now, of course, we could do a comparison of the figures between a couple of branches based on these min and max numbers, but more normally we would do a comparison based on average measures and measures of spread. Now, the three main average measures are the arithmetic mean, the median, and the mode. So I am now going to calculate the mean number of inquiries and the mean number of policies. So mean number of inquiries, the function we use there is the average function. And I get 557.6458333. Let's round that down to a whole number. And the mean number of inquiries is 558. Now the mean number of policies. And again, let's round that down to the nearest whole number. And so the mean number of policies is 114. Now the next two main average measures are the median and the mode. And just in case you aren't familiar with what a median is and a mode, mode is the value that occurs most frequently. So if the number of inquiries per month varies quite a bit, as it does here, if there is a particular number of inquiries that occur most often, that will be the modal value. In the case of the median, if you imagine putting the number of inquiries in numerical order, smallest to largest, the median is the middle one. And if you have an even number of values, it's the average of the middle two. So I've entered the relevant text and formulae for the median and the mode. If you tried mode yourself, you might be somewhat confused by the fact that there are three mode functions. There's the old mode function, and you also have a pair of newer mode functions, mode.sngl for single mode and mode.mult, which is for multiple modes, because a sample of data may have more than one mode. There can be more than one value that occurs at the highest frequency. And in fact, for both inquiries and policies here, they are multimodal. What I've used here is a function that you might have used before, mode.sngl. But in fact, for the number of policies, there is more than one modal value. And in order to identify these multiple modal values, you need to set up the formula that is currently in F17 as an array formula. Now I'm going to assume for a moment that you have used array formulas before, but I'm going to run through this example fairly quickly in case you're a bit rusty on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is clear the formula in F17. And I'm going to select, say, half a dozen or so cells. And having made that selection, I'm going to enter a formula. And because I've already made a selection that covers more than one cell, it will be an array formula. So, equals mode, and we're going to select mult. And the array that I'm going to look in is, of course, branch policies. Now what I do is press Control, Shift and Enter. And I will see that there are in fact two modal values, 99 and 132. And if you check through the data in column C, you will see that both of those occur 3 times. Note that having made the initial selection and of the cells in the selection F17 to F24 that are not needed, that don't contain one of the multiple modes, they have an NA there instead. And of course, we could apply the same principle to the modal number of inquiries. And in this case, we can see that there are actually 4 modal values. So having looked at some of the most important functions for calculating averages in Excel 2019, the average function in particular, the one that calculates the mean, has a couple of variants that can be very useful, and one of them is average if, whereby you can apply one or more conditions and find the average of a set of numbers subject to a set of conditions. Now, the inquiry and policy figures we have here cover the period from January 2012 to December 2015. What if I said, what's the average number of inquiries in the second half of 2015? Well, what I can do in this case is say equals average if. Now, first of all, I need to specify the range of values that I'm going to test for a condition. So this case, it's the range of dates. So that's A4 to A51. Now we specify the criteria. In this case, the single criteria we're going to apply is that we're talking about inquiries in the second half of 2015. So it's going to be from July the 1st onwards. So that is greater than or equal to July the 1st, 2015. And then finally, which are the values we're going to average? Well, they are the values we identify by the branch inquiry's name. And let's see what we get. Let's just take those decimal places down again. And we find that for the second half of 2015, the average number of inquiries per month is just over 461, or 461 if you round down to a whole number. And it's also worth noting that there is another arithmetic mean function, average if s, which enables you to specify multiple criteria. Just one other thing to mention here, if you take this list of policy sales and select it all the way down, don't forget the quick analysis button, and if you click on totals, totals include average, count, sum, etc. So some of the basic statistics that you might be interested in can be quickly calculated by referring to the quick analysis facility there. So that's it on averages. In the next section, we're going to be looking at measures of spread, so please join me for that.